Hello and welcome to the Soulful Goddess Living Podcast. My name is Tyra Omilade, and I use ancient wisdom to educate and empower women to unlock the goddess within so they can liberate themselves from trauma and limiting beliefs while stepping into their power, aligning to their life purpose, and creating a goddess-centered lifestyle. It's all about you, goddess, and I am so happy that you are here today. Enjoy this latest episode of my podcast. Greetings, Goddess Body, Mind, Spirit community. This is Tyra Omilade, your goddess guru, your sister friend, and I love helping women align with their life purpose using the power of ancient wisdom and the goddess-centered lifestyle. And this is part 2 to the series of recordings that I am creating to document my journey to the priesthood, specifically the Sacred Feminine Mysteries Priesthood. And I'm also doing this because it's my way of helping those of you who hear the call, feel the pull to the priesthood, to begin to make the connections in your own life and really believe that it is your time. It is your time to step into the priesthood. And also some people may just be interested in my story. I do want to just say that one of the things that I remember recognizing when I was a child was being raised in Mississippi is not the most progressive thing that could happen to somebody, especially an African American. However, Mississippi is one of the most undeveloped states in the United States. And so it's very natural. And though I was born in Alaska, my family largely lived in South USA. And one of the things about the South is the nature. There's just so much nature. It's a lot of rural areas. And I was raised up at a time when it was a little more safe, I think. At least we felt it was more safe. I'll say it that way. For kids to be outside playing and just outside in nature. And I just remember so many days as a little girl in Georgia and Mississippi in particular, just being outside, playing in nature. It was one of my most favorite things. I remember there were some days when my mom was at work and I would go out in front of the house where we lived in Mississippi, and I laid a blanket out on the ground underneath the tree, and I would just go to sleep on the blanket. And that's just again something that kind of shaped my world in terms of like my connection to Mother Earth. I would even say my name is interesting because my mother named me after a name that she heard on a soap opera, and she just made up the spelling of the name. But whenever I used to meet, before I, actually knew Spanish, I would meet people, these flight attendants at a hotel where I worked at, and they would say, "Oh, your name is like Tieta, Earth." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because I didn't really have a meaning for my name, and so she would say, "Oh, yeah, I'm very earthy." So yeah, even that I think is meaningful. My middle name is Michelle, and I would say Michelle is connected to the Archangel Michael. Now, I will talk about my initiation into the African tradition of Ifa, which we get. We it is said that we are connected to two of the deities. At least here in the diaspora, this is how we do it. You get a mother deity and a father deity. And my father deity is Shango. And Shango and the Archangel Michael are the same energy. So it's just really interesting how my mother chose a name because originally she was going to name me Monique, but she thought, no, she's not a Monique when she looked at me, and she gave me this different name, which reflects more of who I am. Yeah, and of course, it's a little bit of a joke about how many black girls get the middle name Michelle or Marie, or I can't remember the other one. So that's just a little bit of a hilarious thing to me. So when I turned 18, I made the decision to attend Spelman College, which is a pivotal decision yet again. It reflected the path that I was on. Oh, because one of the other things that I thought about after the last recording is when I would think about what I wanted to do as a girl, I would always say, I want to help children and women. And so I always just kind of had this thing about, like, I had no sisters. I was always going to have friends. I just love hanging out with women, having, girlfriends, these relationships with women, always adopting a little sister here, a little sister there. So, I just love being a woman. I love all things woman. And so, to go to an all women's school, it was initially I didn't want to. I was kind of like, hey, I need to be able to date. All right. I'm not trying to just be hanging out with girls all the time. But I had a friend who was at Morehouse College at the time, and he was like, no, Morehouse is right across the street. So with that, I thought, I'm all in. I am all in. I want to go to Spelman College. And so being immersed in a subculture, a sub world that is, I even was there when there was a woman president. She was the first Black woman president. And so, all the leaders, every class we're in is just focusing on women. And it just really started to shape this connection that I had to being proud to be a woman, to love being a woman, to really care about what it meant to be a woman. And also while at Spelman, because people come from around the country, and to a certain degree, at the time, there were a few who came from around the world to go to these. It was 4 undergraduate institutions. They're still there: Spelman, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta University, and Morris Brown College. We were all there together. And I just got to meet so many people from around the world, so many different subcultures of Afro culture, and my world just began to open up. So it's like double opening. Well, really, and opening in multiple ways, because I go to Spelman and it's just this world of women. There's also within the this conglomeration, it's called AUC, Atlanta University Center. Within this AUC, there is this Black pride. Now, I was raised up with Black pride, but it was like nothing I had ever experienced. Wow. So that part of me is opening up, and it's starting to make me question everything about, our culture, our name, like why, racism, just all the constructs of this country. And it made me just so radically Black and proud that even when I would come home, my friends would just be like, whoa, you are different, right? But then just being exposed to so many different things, like the Nation of Islam. Never had I ever really known a Muslim. My dad had one friend, but he was just more of like a military guy who would come by our house, and my dad would just like trash him for being Muslim. But they were friends, so that was their relationship. Um, I had never really been exposed to that. And so, and I became curious. And, when I went there, I went to Catholic church for a little while, and I had been to primarily Black Catholic churches, but this one was a little different in Spelman. I don't even remember the name of it because I didn't go there long, but I just remember it being a little bit more, it felt a little more progressive. I'll put it that way. And but then I was like, I want to go to, I just kept feeling this pull, like it's like this energy that I'm looking for, this the spiritness of Black people, right? So I started going to Black Baptist church pretty regularly. I would go to chapel on campus. I was pretty, actually, I was like, I wasn't religious, but I was a faithful church and chapel goer when I was at Spelman College. Very, very faithful. Even joined a church. and just started learning a little bit more about like the Baptist way of teaching the Bible. And, I even got into tithing as a matter of fact, as a result of going to Black Baptist Church. But yeah, so I started thinking, okay, so I got curious, and I can't remember who it was, but it was me and somebody or somebodies. We went to the Nation of Islam meeting because, the brothers would be out there like encouraging everybody to come to the nation, to where the nation was meeting. And yeah, immediately I was like, hell no. I'm too much of a free woman to be a part of this. But I still found it to be so intriguing to be there and hear them talking in a way that was very much, about being Black and proud. And, it made me feel connected to Malcolm X. So he's one of my favorite, world ancestors is what I call him. But yeah, just too, I'm too much of a free woman to be a part of a religion like that. So what I will say though is that they began to convince me to cut out eating pork. And I don't even know where the beef came from, but I gave up pork at some point and I began to notice this change in me. And then I gave up beef and noticed it was weight loss is what happened immediately, starting to feel good. And this then began to put me on the path. It was kind of like there was all these little things that happened to get me to where I needed to go, because I didn't even know there was a goddess tradition. I never heard anybody talk about a goddess tradition. And I also can't remember when this started. I don't know if this started in high school, but at the very least this started as a result of me going to Spelman. I just began to say two things. Why is God he and not she? Why is God only he? Nobody could answer that question, always would get pushback on it or whatever. The other thing I couldn't figure out was, okay, wait a minute. Now these people didn't come over here and enslaved my ancestors in the name of this religion. I'm something math is not mathing. What were my ancestors before we were brought here to this land? So these are questions that started milling around for me in my early 20s. And it's all a result of me being at Spelman, being in this really pro-Black, ecosystem, I guess you could say. It was just like cracks started coming in. And then the health piece started coming in. Like, I'm giving up pork, I'm giving up beef. And then for some reason, I decided to become a vegetarian. I'm sure it's because, I was reading things that were like, hey, being a vegetarian is good for you. And I wanted a path into being more healthy, just my mother was very much into health. So that really impressed upon me. And so I started becoming vegetarian, and that opened up a whole new world that involved white people who are like talking about chakras and other things like that. But my first real step into it involved me finding Queen Afua. And a lot of African American women credit Queen Afua for helping them on their path. Queen Afua, I think Queen Afua might be in her 70s now. This is 2024. And yeah, so she was, a young woman when I was looking at her books. Well, it was one book, Heal Thyself, that I was looking at. And yeah, it just really opened up a lot for me. And then there was this talk about um what do you call it? The deities out of Egypt, that kind of thing. So yeah, I found Queen Afua, but let me just backtrack really quickly. So I go to Spelman. I am still pretty much Christian, even though there's some cracks that are there. There's some questions, but I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, or, I'm not trying to create storms or anything like that. So I'm just kind of sticking with it, because to do something different is like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle the heat, or I wasn't even open to it. So while I was at Spelman College, I met my husband, Craig. And so Craig and I, we become this couple, this thing, and Craig goes to law school. So we go to um Tennessee. This was after living in Texas. When I was in Texas, this was probably the last time I even really tried to be Christian, to just really buy into it. I remember going to this play that reenacted Jesus in the last days of Jesus or whatever. And yeah, I just kind of got scared into it. Definitely going to church with Craig. And even, coming back to Tennessee, because that was Texas, coming back to Tennessee, I just remember doing everything I could to try to make myself fit within Christianity and feel good with it. But I was really struggling. I even got baptized again because people would say the way people are baptized uh, in Catholicism is not real baptism. So you need to be baptized for yourself if you were baptized as a baby. Like I tried everything. And I was like, the math isn't mathing, right? It's just not I'm not aligned, but I'm doing everything I can to make it work. So we come to Tennessee and I start hanging out with actually a couple. They're from Jackson, Mississippi. The young man I knew from Jackson, his name is David, and he was married to Tasha, but Tasha went to Tougaloo, and they were very much into African spirituality, history, that kind of thing. I met this guy named Kanumi because my husband went to law school at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So we met Kanumi, and Kanumi's from California, and he gave me this book uh, on the Orisha, or maybe I kept it, if I'm being honest. But Kanumi didn't miss that book. But it was this book called The Way of the Orisha, and this is when I started getting into two people, Queen Afua, who I mentioned, which I found Queen Afua in Texas, and started reading her book, and was just like, okay, I'm gonna change my health. I'm gonna really work to get healthier. But there was this weird stuff, like I said, about the Egyptian deities, but I didn't even know really what to do with it, but it was there. And then when I got to Knoxville, Tasha and David, they were kind of talking the same way. But then also I started getting into Iyanla Van Zant, Tapping the Power Within. Somebody introduced that book to me. And that was the book that really started getting me to turn the corner even more. Um, I started questioning right at the beginning of my marriage. I was 24, and in astrology, 24 is a very important year. It's a year of expansion, growth, and awakening. And I didn't really know much about spirituality. And so I had gone and gotten all these books about Islam, the Orthodox Islam. And my husband was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, nothing. I took all the books, took them back, and just really kind of became a little bit closeted in my search for what is this thing in me that's calling me. And, still going to church and everything, and just feeling so like this is not working. I remember my mom was sick. There was this church we were going to, and, I got church wounding. It just seemed like the pastor didn't really care about. One day I came in right before church service and I was like, I'm just really struggling because my mom is so sick or whatever. And he could care less. Like he just totally ignored me or whatever. And, you know, I don't know. But I get started studying Iyanla. And I remember her talking about, ancestral veneration. I was like, she's crazy. No way. Um, and then my mom got sick. I was going to graduate school at the time. My husband was in law school. And my mom got sick, and that started kind of getting me even more into this health stuff. But it's kind of like when you're trying to help somebody heal from cancer, you'll have to do a lot of really different stuff, especially, she was using the medical system, but it wasn't working. And so, I would have to learn about how laughter helps you to heal. And one lady I had met while we were in Knoxville was like, hey, give your mom carrot juice. And I ain't gonna lie, that carrot juice did work for my mom. It gave her a few extra months. Um, and I just remember feeling like I got to do something. I remember making this declaration one time to my mom, and one of my aunts was there, and I was like, I declare you're healthy and you're well or whatever. And in 1997, this was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life. My mother passed May 8th, 1997. And so that was when it was like all pretenses are ripped off, right? Whatever questions I had, I was like, I'm finna ask every question. If there was a lid there, I ripped the top of it off, or I ripped that lid off. And I was so miserable. Christianity was providing zero comfort to me. Christians were providing even less comfort. Just give me the Bible. Let me talk to Jesus. Don't talk to me, Christians, because they would just say stuff that was just not. Okay, if you hear a little bit of a pause, I got booted out. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up where I left off. So I had a job in Nashville, and I went to this African dance class. And it was at this African dance class that, again, things are shifting, things are changing. And it had to have been my ancestors and the great mother, my guides, the ancient mothers. They were just like, we got to get this chica on path, right? I'm grieving and I'm confused because I'm just like, I am not happy with Christianity in my life. And so I go to this class and I start finding out that these people, some of them there, are into this religion that I got, that book that I got from Kanumi, who's from California, this Orisha tradition out of Nigeria. I'm like, whoa, they are part of this tradition? Interesting. And it turns out Iyanla is a part of that tradition. And so one of the things that I had already started doing was, after my mom died, I was so desirous to be with her that I started going back to, what did she say, do with the ancestors? And it was like, set up an ancestor altar and pour libations. So that was something that I was like, I have to do this because I'm so miserable, and I'm so looking for a connection to my mom. And so, to be there with them, it was like, wow. I got my first reading. It was somewhere around 1999 that I got my first reading with an E5 priest and priestess. I remember meeting a woman there who knew Reiki. This is actually a German woman. And, it was just like all this stuff that was just kind of coming up, like this healing work. Queen Afua introduced me to. Greetings, dear sister. On the day of this recording, I had a major internet outage. And so the rest of this story will be picked up in part 3. Thank you for listening. Sorry for the cliffhanger. When I re-listened to the beginning of part 3, I said that it was thanks to Mercury Uranus meeting in the sky. So yeah, we can just tip our hats to Mercury and Uranus on that day. But yeah, see you in the next recording. Thank you so much for listening. Big hugs, and yeah, peace and love. Hey, Queen. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like this episode and hit that subscribe button so that you are notified of all my new releases. Also, be sure to follow me on YouTube and Instagram, and download my Goddess Mini Toolkit, which has all the tools to support you right away in your goddess-centered lifestyle. You'll see all the details right there in the description box. Hey, you have a wonderful day. Be well, sister.